Hey there, how's it going? Hope you are doing well, and spooky season is officially upon us, and you know what that means? That's right, it's horror movie time, and lately at the box office, horror movies have done extremely well, but it looks like we have one coming out this weekend that may be an absolute flop. Exorcist Believer gets horrifying reviews after studio gambled $400 million for the rights. That statement there in itself is insane, that they paid $400 million for the rights to Exorcist. Now, if you have seen any of the other sequels to The Exorcist, they're not that great. The Exorcist alone, great horror movie. The Thing to this day still holds true and is scary as hell. And to think that today in a modern time that you're going to rehash an old IP into something modern that's going to be as good as the original is insane to me. I know Scream's done okay, in my personal opinion. I don't think it's been that good, but a lot of people do tend to enjoy it. And as I said earlier, horror movies are doing very well at the box office, but The Exorcist is a different type of movie. And based on what I've been hearing that they are doing to this movie, you can understand why this thing is falling flat on its face. It says here, the first film in a planned horror trilogy, Exorcist Believer, is getting rather poor reviews, scoring only a 22% average on Rotten Tomatoes. And we have done many videos before about how Rotten Tomatoes is trash, especially when it comes from the critics. And we have seen also that normally when the critics are completely trashing a movie, the audience tends to be the exact opposite. But when you read what they're saying about this movie, based on the trailer that I saw, and when you read the reviews, it does sound like this thing is going to be an absolute dumpster fire. So it says here, Exorcist Believer isn't just another sequel. Universal reportedly paid a head-spinning $400 million for the rights to this franchise in 2021, and Believer needs to generate enough momentum to help launch 2 more sequels. So keep in mind, that's just what they paid for the rights to The Exorcist. That's not including the cost of making the film. That's a pretty big uphill battle they're gonna have right from the get-go. The film has been tracking for a good weekend opening, a potential franchise best actually, of $30 million to $35 million. It's unclear if the reviews, which were published days ago, will impact ticket sales. Horror films are often review-proof. A couple of the negative reviews are saying, quote, double the passion, half the fun. The film is a grab bag of half-baked ideas that never turn into a coherent theme or a reason to exist. The worst horror film of the year. So those kinds of things are not good to hear whatsoever, especially, like I said, with just the rights costing $400 million alone. That's not a good sign. I looked into a couple of these reviews, and when you read as to exactly why this movie is bad, it kind of makes sense. So I found this review over at Polygon and says, The Exorcist Believer abandons the core idea that makes the series great. By getting rid of God, Believer loses its grasp on evil. Again, I haven't seen this movie, but just that statement alone tells me pretty much everything that I need to know. If you are removing God from the aspect of The Exorcist, all you have is a knockoff Evil Dead movie. If you've ever seen that franchise, there is a huge difference between Evil Dead and The Exorcist. The Exorcist, religion plays a very heavy role. The movie is not just about the little girl who becomes possessed. It has to do with the religion itself. It has to do with a priest who is potentially losing his faith, and God plays a central theme in that movie. As opposed to, say, Evil Dead, where Evil Dead is just a demonic possession movie that has horror in it. That's it. Religion has nothing to do with that movie, and that's its own thing. So it says right here, unlike its previous Exorcist series counterparts, Believer doesn't center on an exorcist at all. What the fuck? Instead, the movie mostly follows Victor Fielding, the single father of Angela, who gets possessed along with her friend Catherine. Rather than focusing on possession or its victims, Believer largely tracks Victor as he runs all over town trying to figure out what's wrong with his daughters. And if you remember the original Exorcist, and I just watched this not too long ago, bounces from the possession of the little girl to honing in on the mother and how she's handling it, and then going to the priest that they are trying to recruit to help with this possession. Faith is a major aspect of that movie, and that's what ties it all together nearly at the end. So the fact that they are going to remove faith from this movie and just make it a generic possession movie doesn't really make a lot of sense. The Exorcist Believer repeatedly mentions how demons and possession show up in every major world religion and how Victor needs to find a variety of priests and faith leaders to try to cleanse Angela and Catherine. But again, no specifics make their way into Green and Sattler's script. That feels like a misguided attempt at vague cultural inclusion, but it misplaces a core appeal of the series. That's the problem with a lot of things today, is that we have to water things down to include everyone when you don't need to do that. Everybody can relate to something, and it could still be specifically about a certain religion or gender, or it doesn't matter. I can watch a movie about a female protagonist and I can relate to it because I can understand what that person's going through regardless of her genitalia or religion. The worst victim of all this flattening of the series is also one of Believer's primary selling points, Ellen Burstyn. If you don't know who that is the actress who played the mother from the original Exorcist film.
Remember TIE Fighters? Oh, remember Jawas? Remember? Hey, remember Jurassic Park?
And reprises her role as Chris McNeil. But she's brought back like the movie's only religious icon, seemingly to add legitimacy to the ideas of universal evil and universal faith, and the claim that the only true solution to any of these problems is using exorcism rituals from all cultures. Without a shocking exorcism scene or sacred rituals to pervert or perform, this movie doesn't even feel as scary as any random horror movie about a child's death. The Exorcist was terrifying because it turned the innocence of a child into an insult to God. Without the traditions of religion or the grandeur of God to contrast the evil, Believer gives up the series' existential heft in favor of pulling our sympathy with the random suffering of children. So at the end of the day, this movie I think will do decent opening weekend, but then once word of mouth starts to spread, this is not going to do well at all, in my opinion. You never know. Audiences today like a lot of bad stuff. The expectations of good movies have fallen dramatically over the past couple of years, so you never know. But let me know what you guys think down below. Did you see the trailer? What are your thoughts on the movie hearing this? Does this excite you still? Do you not care? Are you going to go see it? Or did you have absolutely no desire to see this movie whatsoever? Let me know down below in the comments. I always love to hear your thoughts. If you liked the video, hit the like button, all that fun stuff. And I will catch you guys at the next one.